All right, let's work on some highlights here for the background. I want to continue to show you how to paint backgrounds using the acrylic glazing technique. And I'm working on this 24 by 30 acrylic portrait of 30 people. And I have a good foundation for the background. I've got, my dark values blocked in, my midtones, my highlights. Now it's time to put in some highlights on the top using semi-opaque paint. And this is where I mix some titanium white and some Indian yellow and just a little bit of phthalo blue, and that creates a nice yellowish green color that I can use to just paint on top and suggest some leaves. So that's what I'm doing right now in this live painting session, or well, I shouldn't say it's live as I'm recording it. It's a real-time tutorial. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Better yet, check out more of my tutorials at realisticacrylic.com. I also have a special one for you called Fix Muddy Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait. And you can get that by checking out the top comment in this video, the pinned comment, or going to the description of the video, and you'll find that right at the top. Fix Muddy Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait. It's a free PDF guide. I'd just like to give that to you as a gift for taking the time, watch my channel, and yeah, just like to help you out there, help you fix muddy skin tones, overcome those areas where your paint gets kind of chalky and you're not sure which color to use. I'll show you how to do that in that PDF guide. You can print it out and you can use that as a handy resource to have sit next to your easel when you're painting. So realisticacrylic.com/fix-muddy-skin tones, and check that out, and I'd be happy to help you out with your painting with that free guide. Okay, so I'm just adding these little nuances here using a round brush, and we're just suggesting some leaves. Now we're going to pivot and just add a little more phthalo blue, and then just a little more Indian yellow to make sure the color has enough chromatic intensity. And we're just kind of darkening the color a little bit as we move into these other areas, as we move into the areas that are a little bit darker. So we're just wanting to go all over and add some of these little highlights, and it just enhances the overall look of leaves a little bit. I'm going to add just a little more titanium white here, and we're going to add some leaves on this other side. Just scroll over a bit, and then on the top we'll go ahead and add some of these nuances. You got to find a color that's just a little bit lighter, than what you currently have, and that's how you can really blend it in and get a nice effect of some leaves. And you just kind of let your brush dance across the surface a little bit. You don't want to put these patterns all over the place. It just really should be like right on the top. Have some areas where you have a little more of the light color, a little bit less. And we move to a slightly darker part of the mix, adds a little more phthalo blue and Indian yellow. And we're going to use that as we get in a little bit lower here. Down here we're going to scroll down a little bit and add some highlights to these areas. And this will again just kind of liven it up a bit. Now let's switch to a slightly different brush. Let's actually use this filbert brush here. This is a nice filbert, and I can employ the tip of this brush to really get some of these effects and get something just a little more painterly. So just putting in some of these little nuances here. I want to make this look just a little bit out of focus. Just a little bit out of focus. Want to kind of blend it all in and not have anything stand out too much. Alright, so I have a couple different colors on my palette. I can kind of pivot between these lighter colors all the way to the darker ones, and that works pretty well. Just zoom out a little bit so you can see more of what's going on. So if you're adding titanium white, the trick will be to make sure that your glazes have enough chromatic intensity. If they don't, then just add a little more Indian yellow and phthalo blue to liven it up a little bit. You can blend this right in, and filbert brush works pretty good for that. You can smooth it out, and we just want to give it kind of a dappled look to it. Okay. We'll kind of move along to the right hand side and do a little bit of work over there. So again, we're just going to add some highlights here. Now if the colors are the same, you want to make sure that the colors you're laying down here, these semi-opaque leaf shapes, are lighter than what's currently there, just a little bit lighter. So you're going to have to play around with your colors until you find the right one. I'm moving into the lighter part of my mix here, and the matte medium that I have in there does help it to blend in just a bit. So we'll just add a few more little dabs here. Might want to switch to a slightly smaller brush. Let's take this larger round brush, and I think with that I might get a few more precise shapes here. And again, we just want to get some dabs in various shapes to suggest the idea of there being some leaves. Now we'll move over here and we'll add a few little dabs to that. Add a little more titanium white to this mix and some Indian yellow. We'll go ahead and get some dabs in here, just to create the idea of some leaves. All right, and then on the top, add a few more highlights. Don't want to over detail it, but just want to add a few little spots in some key areas. All right, and add some highlights to this top here, and you can see what's going on. I'll just zoom out a bit more. You always want to make your highlights generally a little bit more yellowish, a little warmer in tone. Not only lighter, but a little warmer in tone than the surrounding colors. It's just a good rule of thumb. So if you're mixing titanium white in there, you'll have to use a little bit of a lighter color, a little more chromatic intensity than what you use to do the glazing. So this just gives it a little more depth, adding some of these extra leaf shapes. You can have a couple outliers in there where, you know, they break away from the main pattern, and you put in a couple little dabs. Here we go. We'll just add a few more. Continue this on and add a little more phthalo blue and Indian yellow. As we get down to these other areas now, you have to darken the color. You have to darken the color as you're working over the areas on your painting that are darker. You just can't continue to use this light color over everything. If you start putting it on top of the dark areas, it won't match. It'll start to look chalky, or the patterns will stick out like a sore thumb. So there you do need to switch into something a little bit darker, and then it'll match. You can see now that this is matching a little bit closer to what it should. Again, we want to have a few areas that just kind of blend in with everything else. Now we have a couple of spots that are even a little bit darker still, and that's still a little too light, so I'm adding some ultramarine blue as we get towards the perimeter, and a bit of raw sienna just to kind of muddy it up to make the color a little less chromatically intense so that matches better. There we go. Now it's just a little bit lighter than what's currently there. And see, now I can take, you know, those large brush swashes that I had and add some details to it and really suggest the idea of some leaves here. Not only that, but I can also go over some of the sketch lines, my original sketch lines, and just kind of fuzz those out, just kind of blend them out. So this is how we really, again, can increase the realism and the depth on these leaves. And we're trying to make it look like it's maybe just a little bit out of focus. Just a little bit out of focus. Now we add a few little fun patterns going up to the top here. Again, let the brush kind of dance around. Just let the brush kind of dance around, and you can really almost have some fun with it. A few more dabs in here. Yeah, that's good. Just breaking up the pattern, so instead of having these large shapes, it's starting to look more like leaves as we're adding these little dabs. Then you can get some areas that kind of go outside the edge, you know, of the contour, the part of the leaves that are going to be hitting the background, and add some detail to that, and that's going to also increase the realism too. As you add these little areas that break out onto the edge into the sky. You'll also be able to go out of those sketch lines and just kind of get rid of some of the sketched line look. See, we're adding these little details here all along the edge. There we are. Yep, just kind of breaking out of this a little bit. Breaking out of these edges. Add a little bit of titanium white here and just make this color a little less vivid, because that helps it to blend into the rest of the sky as it's got a little more white in it. And that's such a good way to segue out, and also to kind of go over those sketch lines. It's got a little more opacity to it as well. So look at your reference photo and try to get some organic shapes. Don't just do an even line over everything on the contours. Break it away a little bit. Get a couple pieces of, you know, the leaves that kind of break away from the main mass. You'll see that not everything grows evenly together in your trees, you know, just as you observe in real life. Get some stuff that kind of breaks away just a little bit too. Alright, so we're going over these sketch lines and really obscuring it, and that helps a lot. This is good. There we go. All right, so that really adds some nice depth to the trees. I like what that's done to everything. It's really taken it more out of the watercolor sketchy stage into something a little more painterly, a little more substantial, and I like what that's done for it. So you can see in this video then how using these semi-opaque tones over the top of your glazes can really help enhance the look of trees for backgrounds for your acrylic portrait. And if you're a landscape painter, I hope this helps you as well. Anyway, this video got to be a little bit longer, but I hope you found this valuable. This is where we're currently at in the portrait. Thank you so much for watching. Again, be sure to check out my Fix Muddy Skin Tones in Your Acrylic Portrait free PDF guide. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.